and welcome to another episode of Content Supply Live. Today we're diving into two very interesting topics. We're first going to talk about the Poppi influencer drama and what's happening there. And then we'll talk about the wave of layoffs and what's happening in a bunch of different industries throughout the US. So our first topic is the Poppi influencer drama. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but this has been going on for the last couple of weeks, really since about a week before the Super Bowl. Basically, Poppi just sent a bunch of influencers Poppi vending machines that they had to fill with Poppi themselves, basically just to promote the Poppi brand. And I've just seen a lot of controversy online regarding this PR stunt. And whether it was a good idea, whether it was a bad idea. I know that other brands like Ollipop have commented on this as well, saying that like this is not an okay thing to do. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, this was a super interesting thing that happened in the media a couple of weeks ago. I'm a big fan of Poppi and I'm a big fan of Ollipop as well. But Poppi definitely has leaned in to influencer marketing a ton throughout their the history of their company, really. And that's a big like backbone of their whole brand is they get these influencers to post about the drinks. And I think a lot of what a lot of people felt when they were watching all these influencers get these huge vending machines with like hundreds of Poppi cans was that it just felt a little bit wasteful, or how is this one influencer going to use all of that? Ollipop, like their Poppi's competitor, did leave a comment on someone's video saying, "Oh, these vending machines are like $25,000," which kind of like added spark to the flame, I guess, because people were already up in arms about how wasteful it was. So that was a really interesting thing to watch. The CEO of Poppi did end up getting on TikTok and kind of making this sort of like an apology video and saying, first of all, she squashed the rumor that no, these machines were not $25,000. They were less than that, and that the influencers were just like renting them. They were going to pick them up later and they were going to be used in future campaigns. But a big thing that people have pointed out is that they should have, instead of going to influencers, they should have used those vending machines to stock the fridges or the houses of people who actually need them and not influencers who already have so much money and so much product sent to them all the time. So people were saying, why not put it in like a teacher's lounge or a hospital or to people who really need it? And I think that is a big missed opportunity on Poppi's part, because that would have been amazing PR. And yeah, I think unfortunately, I love the creativity behind this. Like, I think the vending machine idea is so fun. And it was centered around the Super Bowl, which I guess is like soda's biggest like sales generation throughout the whole year is Super Bowl weekend. So I think that was where they were going with it. I think it was like such a creative, fun idea, but unfortunately the execution did not land well with their target audience. So yeah, I'm curious to hear everyone else's thoughts.
Yeah, I can see, I don't know, for me, not knowing the brands as well, to be honest, I don't follow either of them on social. I drink them, especially when I'm trying to, lose some weight and stuff, because they're sugar-free and they're good on the waistband. I think that's valuable, but it is funny there's the missed opportunity, but also you got to still try stuff. I mean, even if they royally screwed up, but at the same time, we're talking about it. So I still think that's going to help the brand overall, because it's in the top of the mind and they could use this negative experience to do the positive thing next. And, kind of like how Domino's a while back, do you guys remember when they did they were like, show us, take a picture of all your pizzas that you guys get at your house. And there was one time that they had a picture of a pizza that like the top of the box touched the cheese and it looked really bad. And they did a whole video on like, we're sorry that this happened. We're going to do better. We're going to keep trying and being better at it. So it was like a bad thing that was getting traction online, and they used that and leveraged it. So I still think there's time for them to turn it around. I don't think it's like the end of it. And this isn't like, to be honest, it's not that cancelable to be frank, in my opinion. Granted, I mean, you don't want to make influencers pay for stuff sometimes, but at the same time, it's like I don't think the strategy was horrible in my mind. So that's my
true.
2 cents on it.
Yeah, I was thinking too, Ollipop has not, from what I have seen, I don't think they have the same brand. I don't know. They just like don't have as many like creative campaigns. And I think that Poppi, people know Poppi as a brand more than they think of Ollipop as a brand. Yes, they're competitors, but I think Poppi does take a lot more risks and they have more creative ideas when it comes to marketing campaigns. And I think that, yeah, that's just the name of the game is sometimes you take a risk and a creative idea and it doesn't land well. But I think that their brand is much more developed and well liked than Ollipop is. Even though I do like their drinks, I think they taste a little better than Poppi.
Hot take. Whoa. I
You heard it
I
here
really
first.
thought they were the same company. I'm not gonna lie, for a little while. So
Okay.
I just, the only way I could distinguish is I knew that Ollipop, they had the cola that was like white. And I was like, oh, Poppi would never. That doesn't, like, brand wise, that looked a little different. But every other, like, their fruit ones, I was like, they're kind of pretty similar. So it's one of those that's like they're both piggybacking off each other's momentum.
Yeah, it's true. I just buy whatever's on sale at Walmart. I think a lot of other consumers feel that same way, where they're pretty similar. So it's just like whatever is sold at their local grocery store.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do too. Whatever's on sale at Costco, I just pick one of those up, whether it's like Ollipop or Poppi. Yeah, I'll drink whatever. So, but yeah, regarding this topic, I think it definitely they definitely did miss a huge opportunity by like putting these vending machines in like hospitals and other public areas where a lot of people could benefit from their product. But then again, influencers already have such a huge following that like by them posting on their platforms, like they probably did get a lot of business from these influencers because all of the influencers followers and everything, they see that like, oh, this influencer likes Poppi, so I'm going to buy Poppi too. So I think that it was smart on that end, but also, I mean, you should always like try to like have your brand be like really good in the eyes of like the community and everything. And by putting it in like hospitals or other public areas, it could definitely help with that. Does anyone else have anything to say on this Poppi scandal, I guess?
Only one thing. When people whine about stuff like this and they're like, they should have been doing this type of stuff. It's like, bro, what are you doing? I'm sorry. Like, what are you doing? You're just a whine baby. Like, you're just whining over what? Like, get out and do something. Like, you hate the way that was done. Start your own brand and do the same thing. Do you have 300 million, however millions of dollars to run these types of campaigns and build vending machines that are branded and ship them to people? You put them where the freak you want. But like, that's the thing. It's like, if you're making that bet as a business, it's a safer bet with the influencers. Yeah. Sorry, like that's just is. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Is like when people whine, it's just classic internet. People just whine about stupid stuff. You can do the nicest thing for somebody, show it online, and they're like, you should. Like they complain about something, they'll find something. So just ignore the haters. Keep doing what they're doing.
I was gonna say, I wonder if Ollipop will hop on the trend and maybe do the exact vending machine idea, but move more towards giving their product away to people who they think might.
We're giving Ollipop to people. Like, we're giving Ollipop to people who are overweight. Here you go. Like, body positivity month. I don't know. It's just
okay. Ollipop, do not hire Brenden as your creative director because
no, it's not a very bro brand. So I struggle to.
Definitely not.
The ideas and the direction are way different from my perspective. So
they're not for you.
All right, well, let's talk about the wave of layoffs and what's happening there. So many industries, and I'm sure that you're all aware, especially in like the tech and media industries, they're experiencing a widespread of layoffs. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Like, what do you think? Are these layoffs a sign of a weakening economy, or are companies just being cautious? What are your thoughts on this?
I have a few thoughts. When it comes to layoffs, there's lots of reasons why businesses would do it. Obviously, there's the external pressures with, people are tightening their purse strings. So if you have less sales, you obviously have less cash coming in. Therefore, you have to lay off to be able to keep the business going. I think it's a combination of that. Different technological developments do that. But then also, if you look at it, a lot of these companies, they'll lay off a ton of people and hire new talent for cheaper just because they can. So it could be any one of these factors, but I think as of late, you look at a lot of these tech companies, some of the roles that they're laying off are kind of the nice to have roles in those companies. Obviously, you're always going to need someone to build a product. You're always going to need someone to sell a product. And anything more than that, I think they're being a little more cautious because if sales are slower, they're going to trim the fat in those spots. Sometimes that can come down to even the sales reps because they're the most expensive piece in the company often too. So a quick way to guarantee you spend less is trim 20% of the sales force. So stuff like that happens. You look at the types of companies that have done a lot of layoffs in the last little bit, like Meta and Windows and Amazon, and basically all the federal workers that just got laid off unprovoked on their side, other than a lot of those initiatives and things that were spent on from our taxpayer dollars were waste. And so I don't know, there's some of those that it's a bummer because obviously you want people to be able to provide for their families, but at the same time, fiscal responsibility is important. So anyway, that's some of my thoughts on it, that some of these are needed. And then other times you just feel for people who get laid off because it sucks. I've been there. It's awful. So I don't know what you guys think on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, Brenden. I feel like getting laid off is like the worst feeling ever. And I do hear a lot of that happening, especially just on LinkedIn. I feel like every time I go on there, someone is announcing that they got laid off, and it can feel really anxiety inducing. But I think one thing we can do, especially as marketers, is to start diversifying your streams of income, even if it's little by little, or having like an emergency savings fund. I think that's just never a bad idea. So I think especially in marketing, there's a lot of different ways that you can add income streams to your revenue. So I would highly recommend doing that. But it is so scary. I hate reading about these things.
Yeah. I think it also goes back to the algorithm on LinkedIn. What gets you to hang out on LinkedIn longer? So sometimes they feed you that, right? They feed you the negative because it's like, oh no, look at these people, and you read about it. So it's there's a lot of opportunities still. It feels like everything's tightening up, but there really is a lot of opportunities. So if you have that type of attitude, it'll work out there. So sometimes if freelancing dries up in some things, like there's other places. Like we've noticed that in our business, it just depends on the time of year, and we have different types of projects coming in. So it's good to diversify, like you're saying.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's good to diversify. It's good to have like multiple streams of income just in case these layoffs do happen. Because sometimes it's just overnight and you get an email and you're like, hey, you don't have a job today. And it's very scary. I also wonder like how it impacts like the company culture at these big companies like Meta, and like Starbucks. I know that they just laid off a bunch of other people too. So I'm curious to hear, like, I'm curious to like see what other employees would think that are part of those companies, just because I know if I was working for Meta and like one of my coworkers was laid off, I would be like, oh, well, am I next? Like, am I going to have a job next month or next year? So I'm sure that it's a scary time for everyone.
Yeah. Have either of you been like the survivor in a job before?
I have not. No.
Not from like a layoff.
So my last agency I worked at, half the workforce got laid off, and I was one of the survivors. And so I knew there was kind of like writing on the wall and it was potentially coming there, but you feel so guilty on it. And I think about some of our other clients that we've seen that happen here and there for different tech companies we worked with. They laid off a big chunk of people. And then the ones that are left behind, they feel like awkward about it because it's like, I felt like they were a good worker, but they're gone and I'm still here. It's a survivor's guilt type thing. And so I think it just comes down to like, be grateful for what you have, but it's always tough because our parents, at least my parents' generation, they're kind of older. It was like you work for a company and you're there ride or die. And very rarely did people ever get fired. Like it was like once you have a job with this company, you're there. Whereas nowadays, most people's tenures are like average a year to 2 years. So if you're over that point, like the safest way to actually keep your income is to start a business, because at least you have lots of clients, you have lots of potential income streams. So I think that's another thing when it comes to people who are creative and marketers. Like if you can't find a job, like start an agency, and then a lot of those people can really build it out and work through. And then you can resell not only our services, but you can resell, there's lots of people that you can be a white label front for. And then it empowers your income, because then you're in charge of your own income rather than a boss could fire you tomorrow. It's like, these are my clients. This is my thing. So one client fires you, that's fine. I've got 20 more. So there's some of those things when you talk about like what's better. And as an economy, it's better to have that be the structure anyway. I just think we're seeing the shift in the structures of creative work. That there's not just these big creative branding companies, big, massive video companies. You're seeing smaller companies that are able to be more agile popping up all the time, and that are able to do a lot of revenue because AI has helped to basically offload most of the copywriting, and the tech has gotten cheaper, and the ability to sell to anybody has gotten a lot easier. So there's, it's still a happy moment to think about starting a business and stuff like for a lot of those people. So for anybody that's listening, that's, I think the takeaway message is, if you're hyper worried about it, start something, because that's what's going to make it better.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. All right. Well, that is the end of today's episode of Content Supply Live. Let us know what your thoughts are on the Poppi PR influencer drama, and then also let us know your thoughts on the wave of layoffs and how you can diversify your revenue stream so that you aren't so worried if you end up getting laid off. And that's the end of today's episode. We will talk to you again soon.